The Honda HR-V was one of the first models that kick-started the compact crossover segment. Now the company is back with an all-new third generation model. This time, the Honda HR-V eHEV, as it's known, will only be available as a hybrid powered by 1.5 litre petrol engine. It's quite an innovative design and it has quite a lot of competition. It goes up against a huge number of rivals like the Toyota CHR, the Kia Niro, the Nissan Qashqai, and a whole heap of other models. So, what's it like? Now, it's quite a distinctive front end with this new grille design, and part of that grille design is to signify that this is now an electrified hybrid model. There's quite sleek LED headlights and the car comes on 18-inch wheels. The sloping roofline does give it that coupe-like image, but it is still very much a 5-seater car with 4 doors. It's quite neat how the door handle for the rear doors is integrated into the window frame. Around the back you have, again, sloping back end, but that doesn't ease in too much into the overall boot space. It's still quite good, and the fact that this is a compact hybrid system, so it doesn't have a huge battery, means that it doesn't eat into the overall boot space. Now, despite that sloping roofline, there's actually a lot of space back here. I'm 5'9" and I've easily got a couple of inches of headroom, and there's loads of space in front. I can just about touch the driver's seat in front of me, and that seat is set up from my driving position. I've loads of leg room here. I can stretch right out. My feet go a little bit under the seats. I've literally got half a foot of space here. The backs of the seats have pretty generous big door pockets. You've got a drinks bottle holder in here, which is really nifty the way that's positioned. You've got a comfortable armrest, 2 USB charge ports down there, more space for oddments, and there's still a little bit of a small middle seat. It's not great, it is small, but it will do somebody at a pinch. What makes up for this seat is the fact that there's an almost completely flat floor in the back here, so there's no real ingress into the amount of foot space you have. Both of the outer seats also have ISOFIX points and very easy to get in thanks to quite a generous door aperture too, and you got big windows too, so you don't feel like you're sitting inside some small dark coupe. That's a really good thing. One of the really cool features are these rear magic seats. What's different about them? Well, if you need to put a lot more space in the front, you can just fold these up, pull that down, and they stay locked up in position. And you've got all this room in here, but it doesn't end there, because when you pop it back down, if you need to put a really big item in the boot, you can still fold down these seats, and look, this folds down into the floor and gives you a completely flat, low true level. Really clever stuff. The most surprising thing as soon as you sit into the HR-V is how well finished it is. There's a real upswing in quality here. You've got a 9-inch touchscreen display, it looks pin sharp, works very well, runs Android Auto, and you can wirelessly connect Apple CarPlay too. You've got a digitized instrument display, and you've got a really nice, very ergonomic round steering wheel with touch controls that are very easy to find. Everything is ergonomic in here. You've got physical controls for the climate control, and they even have quite a reassuring click. All the buttons feel really well made, really high quality inside. There's 2 USB charge ports in the front here, a small little shelf to put your phone while it charges, or you can use the wireless charging pad that sits in here. There's also a 12-volt power socket. And then you've got 2 cup holders, you've got an electric handbrake, and your drive select mode. There's 3 different drive modes in the HR-V as well. Good armrest, and you've more storage underneath here. But there's a couple of other nice features. First of all, the visibility out of the cabin is really good. The windscreen sits a little bit more upright. You've got slender A-pillars and generously sized door mirrors. They also sit a little bit further back, so you don't get any blind spots there that are going to put something out of your eyesight. All the vents are neatly made into the dashboard here, but there's also these kind of cool looking L-shaped vents, and they're designed to blow air all around the cabin and get a better distribution of air climate control. Powering the Honda HR-V is a new 1.5 litre hybrid petrol system. It is quite an innovative setup because it does away with having a conventional gearbox. This car doesn't have a gearbox. What it does have though is a slightly larger battery pack than what appears in the Jazz hybrid. That does give it a little bit more ability to spend more time driving in pure electric mode. That hybrid system works in 3 different drive modes as well. You have a conventional setup where it will drive electrically in town, and that is basically using the power from the onboard battery to drive the electric motors and power the front wheels. Then there is a mid-range option, and that effectively what this does is it uses the 1.5 litre petrol engine to not power the wheels but to power a generator, which then develops electricity to power those electric motors. Finally, and more for when you're on a motorway or at higher speeds, the engine will activate the clutch pack and will drive the wheels directly. So it has 3 different ways in which it can propel itself, and it does do a good job of switching between those. And when the engine does activate in the regular mode, when it's just powering the generator, it is fairly hushed because it's not really revving, it's effectively just idling and using its power to power the generator to create electricity. That's great around town and in urban settings because it does add to the hushed and quiet nature of the HR-V. When you get out in the open road though, it does get a little bit more vocal because that engine is having to work a little bit harder. It's fine at a cruise, but it's not a car that is really built for outright sporty driving, although there is a sport mode that you can choose, and it does, in fairness, sharpen things up a little bit. It does make it a little bit more engaging to drive, but this is very much a car that is, much like myself, built for comfort and not for speed. It is great around town. The steering is light, the visibility is very good in this car, and that's one of the things that Honda has paid close attention to with this car, is how the driver actually interacts with the car, or how they fit and sit into the car. The A-pillars are quite slim in comparison to some of its competition. That does make it a little bit better. It increases your visibility. For example, when you're looking through a junction, it makes cyclists and other vulnerable road users that bit more visible. And it does have quite large door mirrors, but these are actually set back, and by doing so, that creates another gap, another line of sight in which things aren't going to get obstructed and hidden. So that's quite a good way of maximizing how safe a car like this can be. And it is quite a safe car. It's built with a lot of very high tensile steel. Now the big question a lot of people will want the answer to is just how economical is this hybrid Honda HR-V? Well, today we've had quite a mixed day of driving, everything from high-speed German autobahns to sleepy villages where we barely got above 30 kilometers per hour, and everything in between, including fast country roads. And so far today, it has returned an average of 4.7 litres per 100 kilometers, and that figure has actually been coming down the more we've been driving the car. So it is quite an economical car, given that this isn't a plug-in or electric car in any sense. It will do a fair bit of electric only driving, and you do get an EV indicator on the digital instrument display that pops up just to remind you that you are driving on just the battery. And that interplay, when it does need to revert back to using its combustion engine, well, it's usually mostly quite smooth unless you really stab at the accelerator pedal. It's quite gentle in how it comes back in. The Honda is also quite a comfortable car. Thankfully, unlike many other manufacturers who make cars in this segment, Honda hasn't tried to make this overly sporty by giving it very stiff suspension or trying to put huge big wheels on it. This is a car that still remains a very comfortable car to drive in, and it does its best work obviously at slower speed. But as you do get out and add a little bit more speed, yes, there's a little bit of body roll there, but overall it does keep a good degree of composure. The front end tucks in relatively nicely through corners. The steering is quite nicely set up. It's not necessarily overly weighted, nor is it too light, so you do get quite a nice sense of connection with the car and what it's doing. But really, as I've mentioned earlier, this is a car that is very much about comfort, refinement, and if that's what you're looking for in a car, particularly in a compact SUV like this, then I think you probably will quite like what the Honda has to offer in that regard. If there's one chink in the HR-V's armor of comfort and refinement, it's when you start to push on a little bit more and drive it in a little bit more of a spirited fashion. The engine just gets a little bit more revvy, and well, it just seems to not really enjoy it all that much. This is a car that is much better suited to just driving in the urban environment. If you want to know more about the Honda HR-V or read reviews of all of its rivals, head over to our website at CompleteCar.ie. You'll find a link to that in the description below.